Silent Reckoning. The Viridian Empire stretched across 17 galactic sectors, their sleek violet ships a symbol of order and dominance throughout known space. For 8 centuries, no species had challenged their rule. Their technology was unmatched, their tactics flawless, their authority absolute. The long tendriled Viridians, with their crystalline exoskeletons and 4-lobed brains, had long considered themselves the architects of civilization. Admiral Zenith stood on the command deck of the Eternal Judgment, flagship of the Viridian 7th Fleet. His iridescent skin rippled with satisfaction as he watched the holographic display of their latest conquest, a minor rebel outpost on the fringes of the Cygnus Arm. Another victory for the Archives, he said to his second-in-command, Commander Lyra. The Council will be pleased. Lyra's sensory appendages twitched nervously. Admiral, long-range scanners are detecting an anomaly in Sector 12. Something is emerging. Zenith's vertical pupils narrowed. Sector 12 was empty space, a dead zone where nothing had existed for millennia. Natural phenomenon. No, sir. The energy signature is manufactured. The holographic display shifted, focusing on a distant point of light that seemed to tear at the fabric of space itself. A dimensional rift. Rare, but not unheard of in the vastness of space. What emerged from it, however, made Admiral Zenith's respiratory chambers seize. A ship, but unlike any vessel in the Imperial Registry. Black as deep space with sharp, angular lines that defied Viridian aesthetic principles. It measured nearly 3 kilometers in length, its hull adorned with what appeared to be battle scars, evidence of conflicts unknown to Imperial historians. Species identification, Zenith demanded. Lyra's tentacles worked the controls frantically. Unknown, Admiral. Wait, there's a symbol on the hull. The archival system is searching. It's, her voice faltered, human. The command deck went silent. Humans were a footnote in Viridian history, a primitive species from a backwater world who had shown promise before vanishing from galactic affairs centuries ago. Some said they had gone extinct. Others believed they had retreated beyond the galactic rim. No one had seen a human vessel in over 300 cycles. Open communications, Zenith ordered, his voice steady despite the unease building in his secondary heart. Standard diplomatic protocols. The communications officer complied, sending the automated greeting in 17 languages. For 12 long minutes, there was nothing. Then a response, not in words but in action. The human vessel oriented itself directly toward the Viridian fleet, its posture unmistakably confrontational. "They're scanning us," Lyra reported, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Admiral, these scans are. They're penetrating our shields as if they weren't there." Zenith's pride flared. No species ignored Viridian diplomatic overtures. No technology bypassed their defenses so easily. Fire a warning shot. Class 2 energy pulse, 10 degrees off their bow. The Eternal Judgment unleashed a brilliant beam of concentrated plasma, deliberately missing the human vessel, but demonstrating Viridian firepower. The human ship absorbed the energy without acknowledgement. Then something impossible happened. A wave of energy, invisible to sensors but devastating in effect, rolled through space. Every weapon system on the Viridian vessels simultaneously deactivated. "What just happened?" Zenith demanded. Lyra's skin had paled to a sickly blue. They've remotely disabled our weapons arrays. All of them. Across the entire fleet." "Impossible," Zenith snapped. "Reboot the systems." Before his order could be carried out, the communication system crackled to life. A voice, low, measured, undeniably human, filled the command deck. "This is Captain Maya Chen of the Terran vessel Memory of Earth. Your species is familiar to us, Admiral Zenith. The Viridian Empire. Conquerors. Self-proclaimed architects of civilization." Zenith stiffened at hearing his name. How did this human know who commanded this fleet? "You seem surprised," the human continued. "Don't be. We've been watching for a very long time. From dimensions your science cannot yet access. Learning, growing, remembering. What do you want? Zenith demanded, abandoning protocol in his growing unease. Justice, Captain Chen replied simply. Or perhaps understanding would be a better word. The holographic display changed again, revealing the face of their adversary. Captain Maya Chen was nothing like the historical depictions of humans in the Imperial archives. Her features were sharp, augmented with subtle technological enhancements that glowed beneath her dark skin. Her eyes reflected stars that Zenith didn't recognize. "You will power down your vessels and prepare to receive envoys," she stated. "This is not a negotiation." Admiral Zenith, who had crushed rebellions across 3 spiral arms, who had never known defeat in 112 engagements, felt something unfamiliar crawl up his spine. Not quite fear, not yet, but its precursor. "And if we refuse?" he challenged. Captain Chen's expression didn't change. "Then we will demonstrate why that would be unwise." Without warning, one of the smaller Viridian cruisers, the Swift Retribution, simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris field. It was there, and then it wasn't. 500 crew members, gone. "What did you do?" Zenith whispered, his composure cracking. "We relocated them," Chen replied. "The ship and all personnel now orbit a star 17,000 light-years from here. They are unharmed but will require assistance. Consider it a demonstration of good faith that we chose relocation rather than destruction." The implication staggered everyone on the command deck. No known technology could achieve instantaneous matter transportation across such distances. "You have 1 standard hour to comply," Captain Chen concluded, and the communication ended. Within minutes, the Viridian High Council had convened an emergency session. Admiral Zenith found himself reporting to the 7 most powerful beings in the Empire, their projected holograms regarding him with varying degrees of alarm and skepticism. "Preposterous," declared Counselor Vex, the eldest among them. "No species possesses such capability." "I witnessed it firsthand, Counselor," Zenith countered. The Swift Retribution vanished instantly. "Our long-range scanners confirm a Viridian energy signature precisely where the human claimed." High Counselor Therix, whose ancestor had established the Empire millennia ago, leaned forward. "Admiral, what do you assess as their intentions?" Zenith considered carefully. "They mention justice, understanding. Their language suggests a grievance, though no human has engaged with our empire in centuries." "The Purge," whispered Counselor Nyara, her voice barely audible. The other counselors shifted uncomfortably. The Purge was ancient history, a shameful chapter from the early imperial expansion, when several promising species had been deemed potential rivals and systematically eliminated or subjugated. "Impossible," Counselor Vex dismissed. "The human homeworld was rendered uninhabitable. Their colonies isolated and regressed to pre-industrial states. Their presence in galactic affairs was erased. And yet," Therix mused, "here they are." As if summoned by these words, alarms blared across the command deck. Lyra's voice, tight with barely controlled panic, interrupted the council session. "Admiral, multiple dimensional rifts are opening throughout the sector. More human vessels are emerging." The holographic display expanded to show dozens, then hundreds of rifts tearing open the fabric of space. From each emerged ships of varying designs but similar aesthetic, angular, battle-scared, radiating power beyond Viridian understanding. "How many?" Zenith demanded. Lyra's response was a whisper. "At current count, over 9,000, and more appearing." The council chamber erupted in chaos. 9,000 vessels represented a force larger than the combined Viridian fleet. If each possessed the capabilities demonstrated by the memory of Earth, they faced an extinction-level threat. "Open communications with the human captain again," Zenith ordered. Captain Chen's face appeared once more on the display, calm and resolute. "Your hour is not yet complete, Admiral," she noted. "What is the meaning of this escalation?" Zenith demanded, struggling to maintain a diplomatic tone. You speak of justice while positioning an invasion force. Not an invasion, Chen corrected. A reckoning. And an invitation. Her eyes shifted to the council members visible in Zenith's transmission. Your ancestors made a critical error centuries ago, High Counselor Therix. They assumed that destroying our world would destroy our potential. The human captain's image was replaced by a stellar map that made no sense to Viridian eyes, stars in configurations unknown to Imperial astronomers. When you rendered Earth uninhabitable, you forced us to adapt, to evolve. Those humans who survived retreated not just to hidden colonies, but to dimensions adjacent to your reality. We've been building, growing, advancing in spaces you cannot perceive. The image returned to Captain Chen's face. Today marks 300 years exactly since the Purge. We have returned not for vengeance, but for recognition, and to correct the imbalance in the galaxy. A data stream flooded the Viridian communication systems, information about human achievements, their dimensional technology, their new homeworlds existing in parallel space. The scale of what they had built was incomprehensible. Your hour is complete, Admiral, Chen stated. What is your response? Zenith looked to the council members, whose expressions ranged from outrage to terror. He understood then that this moment would define the future of his species. Pride demanded resistance. Wisdom suggested otherwise. We will comply, he said finally, and receive your envoys. Captain Chen nodded once. Wise decision. Prepare for our arrival. As the transmission ended, Zenith gazed out at the assembled human fleet, a force that had materialized from nothing, wielding technology that defied Viridian understanding. The Viridians had always believed power was measured in territory controlled, in species subjugated, in resources accumulated. But these humans had revealed a new kind of power, one born from adversity, forged in dimensions beyond comprehension, and delivered with the certainty of those who had transcended the very laws of physics. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Zenith understood what it meant to be truly outmatched. And as the human vessels arranged themselves in a formation that resembled an ancient Viridian symbol for dialogue, he wondered if his empire would survive the coming conversation. The reckoning had begun, silent and overwhelming, and the galaxy would never be the same. The breaking dawn. The 7 envoys from the human fleet descended to the Viridian capital world of Crystallis in a shuttle that seemed to phase in and out of reality. Their one moment, ghost-like the next. Its design defied conventional engineering, curves and angles shifting subtly as if the vessel existed partially in another dimension. The grand reception hall of the Imperial Palace had been prepared according to protocols not used in centuries, those reserved for meetings with civilizations of equal or greater power. The irony wasn't lost on Admiral Zenith as he stood at attention beside the 7 high counselors. For 800 years, no such reception had been necessary. Captain Maya Chen led the human delegation. In person, she was more imposing than her holographic projection suggested. Standing nearly 2 meters tall, her body was a seamless blend of organic and technological components, not crude cybernetics, but something more elegant, as if technology had evolved alongside her biology. High Counselor Therix, she acknowledged with a slight nod. The last time humans stood in this hall was 300 years ago. They came as supplicants, begging for mercy for their homeworld. Therix's crystalline exoskeleton shifted hues, a sign of discomfort among Viridians. Those were different times, Captain Chen. Different leadership. And yet, Chen replied, the same empire, the same ideology of supremacy. She gestured, and one of her companions stepped forward, a man whose appearance caused murmurs among the Viridian officials. Unlike Chen, he was entirely human, elderly by their standards, with deep lines etched into his face and silver hair falling past his shoulders. This is Dr. Thomas Cavelli, Chen introduced him, chief historian of the Dimensional Registry and the last living human born on Earth before its destruction. Cavelli's eyes, bright blue and entirely natural, studied the Viridians with something more complex than hatred, something more akin to scientific curiosity. "I was 8 years old when your warships darkened Earth's skies," he said, his voice strong despite his apparent age. "I watched from a lunar colony as your plasma weapons boiled away our oceans and cracked our tectonic plates. I have spent 3 centuries ensuring that no human would forget what happened that day." High Counselor Nara stepped forward, her posture humble, unprecedented for a member of the Council. "What was done cannot be undone. But perhaps—" "We are not here for apologies," Chen interrupted. "Or revenge. If revenge were our purpose, you would already be extinct." The bluntness of her statement sent a ripple of fear through the assembled Viridians. "Then what do you want?" Therix asked. Captain Chen's augmented eyes gleamed. "Recognition, restitution, and partnership." With a subtle gesture from her hand, the air between the delegations shimmered. A 3-dimensional projection appeared, but unlike Viridian holography, this had substance, weight, presence. It showed a galaxy, but not the one they knew. Stars were arranged differently. Cosmic features appeared in unexpected places. "This is our home now," Chen explained. "What we call the parallel cosmos, a dimensional plane adjacent to your reality. When you destroyed Earth, a handful of our scientists had just cracked the theoretical framework for dimensional shifting. It was experimental, dangerous, not meant for mass evacuation." Dr. Cavilli continued the narrative. "Necessity accelerated our development. Those who survived, barely 30,000 humans, found themselves in a dimension with different physical laws. We had to adapt or perish." The projection shifted, showing the evolution of human settlements across this parallel dimension, from desperate encampments to sprawling cities, to vast Dyson spheres harvesting energy from stars that didn't exist in conventional space. "Over 3 centuries, Chen said, we rebuilt, we advanced. We discovered that the dimensional barrier allowed us to observe your galaxy without being detected. We watched the Viridian Empire expand, subjugate, civilize. We witnessed your triumphs and your atrocities. And you judged us," Admiral Zenith observed. "We studied you," Chen corrected. "As you once studied us before deciding, we were a threat to your supremacy. The difference is that we learned from our observations. You merely confirmed your biases." High Counselor Therix's skin had paled to a defensive ivory. "If what you say is true, if your civilization now exists in this parallel dimension, why return at all? Why not continue your separate development?" The question hung in the air, legitimate and piercing. Captain Chen exchanged glances with her companions before responding. "Because the dimensional barrier is collapsing." The projection changed again, showing fracture lines spreading across the fabric of reality itself. A cosmic crisis invisible to Viridian science, but catastrophic in its implications. "Our physicists detected the first signs 50 years ago," Dr. Cavilli explained. "The separation between dimensions is not permanent. It oscillates over very long cycles. In approximately 100 years, our dimension will begin to reintegrate with yours. When that happens," Chen added, "our civilizations will occupy the same space. Without preparation, without understanding, without coordination, the resulting chaos would destroy both our peoples and possibly tear apart the galaxy itself." The significance wasn't lost on the Viridian scientists present. One stepped forward without protocol. Science Director Velex, her appendages trembling. "You're describing a dimensional convergence event," she said. "The energy release would be incalculable." "Correct," Chen affirmed. "Which is why we have returned now, while there is still time to prepare, to coordinate a managed convergence rather than a catastrophic collision." The grand reception hall fell silent as the implications settled over the gathering. What had seemed like an invasion force was, in fact, something far more complex, the harbinger of an existential crisis that would require unprecedented cooperation. High Counselor Therix studied the human delegation with new understanding. "You could have simply appeared without warning when the convergence began. Let chaos reign. Let us suffer for our past actions. Captain Chen's expression remained impassive. Some among us advocated for exactly that approach. But humanity has evolved beyond simple retribution. We have built a civilization based on understanding the cosmos in all its dimensions. We will not sacrifice that achievement for vengeance. What do you propose? Therix asked. A new order, Chen replied. Not Viridian, not human. Something collaborative that acknowledges both our histories and prepares for our shared future. From within her delegation stepped another figure, a woman whose appearance caused even greater consternation among the Viridians. She was unmistakably a hybrid, part human, part Viridian, her skin bearing the iridescent quality of Viridian exoskeletons while maintaining human form and features. This is Ambassador Lyra Cavelli. Chen introduced her, Dr. Cavelli's great-granddaughter, and the first successful human Viridian hybrid. Ambassador Cavelli bowed in the traditional Viridian manner. My existence proves our biological compatibility despite our differences. In the parallel dimension, we found Viridian genetic material preserved from the early contact period. Over generations, we have worked to understand your biology, your culture, your potential. The implications staggered the council. These humans hadn't just survived. They had studied their destroyers with scientific detachment, even to the point of creating hybrids that combined both species' strengths. Why would we trust you? Admiral Zenith asked, voicing the question on every Viridian mind. After what our ancestors did to your homeworld. Captain Chen turned her gaze directly to him. Because unlike your empire, Admiral, we judge civilizations not by their past actions, but by their capacity to evolve. The question is not whether we can trust you. It's whether you can rise above the ideology that led to Earth's destruction. The challenge hung in the air, profound in its simplicity. High Counselor Therix conferred briefly with his colleagues before responding. What you propose would fundamentally alter the Viridian Empire as it has existed for millennia. The Empire as you know it cannot survive the convergence regardless, Dr. Cavelli pointed out. This is not merely a philosophical or political question. It is a matter of physics. Either we collaborate to manage the dimensional reintegration, or both our civilizations face extinction. Captain Chen stepped forward, extending her hand in the ancient human gesture of partnership, a move deliberately chosen for its historical significance. 300 years ago, a human delegation offered this same gesture to your ancestors. They refused it, choosing dominance instead of cooperation. Today, we offer you a second chance, not out of weakness, but from a position of strength and necessity. The next 12 hours saw intense negotiations, scientific presentations, and cultural exchanges that would have been unimaginable just days before. Human scientists explained dimensional physics that rewrote Viridian understanding of the cosmos. Viridian historians shared uncensored accounts of the Purge and its aftermath. Both sides revealed vulnerabilities and strengths with growing candor. As the Viridian suns set on the capital world, Admiral Zenith found himself in a garden terrace with Captain Chen, away from the formal negotiations. Your vessels, he said quietly. The technology you demonstrated. You could have conquered us without these talks, these compromises. Chen gazed up at the emerging stars. Conquest was never our objective. Admiral, if 3 centuries in a parallel dimension taught us anything, it's that power is not about domination. It's about adaptation, resilience, the capacity to transcend limitations. Qualities your species clearly possesses in abundance, Zenith acknowledged. As does yours, Chen replied, surprising him. The Viridian Empire may have been built on conquest, but it has maintained stability across 17 sectors for 8 centuries. That requires wisdom as well as strength. Zenith studied this human who had led a force that could have obliterated his civilization, but chose collaboration instead. Will your people accept this partnership after what we did to your homeworld? Will yours? Chen countered. After we demonstrated technology that renders your defenses obsolete. Their eyes met in mutual understanding. Both faced the challenge of leading their civilizations into an uncertain future, one that required abandoning old grievances and power structures. There will be resistance, Zenith admitted. Many Viridians believe our supremacy is the natural order. And many humans have dreamed of retribution for centuries, Chen acknowledged. But necessity has a way of clarifying priorities. As dawn broke over Crystallis the following day, the Treaty of Dimensional Convergence was drafted, the first equal agreement between humans and Viridians in history. It established joint scientific commissions, cultural exchanges, technological sharing protocols, and the framework for a new galactic governance that would oversee the gradual merger of the dimensions. The signing ceremony took place where the human delegation had first arrived. High Counselor Therix and Captain Chen stood before representatives of both civilizations, the beginning of a partnership born from crisis, but promising something greater than either had achieved alone. 3 centuries ago, Therix addressed the gathering. The Viridian Empire made a grave error. We perceived potential as threat. We responded to possibility with destruction. Today, we acknowledge that error and embrace a different path. Captain Chen stepped forward, and humanity acknowledges that our return could have been an apocalypse rather than an opportunity. We choose to break the cycle of dominance and retribution that has defined too much of galactic history. As the treaty was signed, the assembled human fleet began a transformation that astonished the watching Viridians. The vessels shifted, their structures realigning, merging in some cases, their energy signatures harmonizing with the dimensional frequencies detailed in the scientific briefings. What are they doing? Admiral Zenith asked in wonder. Ambassador Cavelli, the human Viridian hybrid, smiled. They're establishing dimensional anchors, the first phase of technology that will help stabilize the convergence when it begins. This is not just ceremony, Admiral. The work begins today. In the decades that followed, the galaxy witnessed a transformation unprecedented in its history. Human dimensional science combined with Viridian engineering created technologies that neither civilization could have developed alone. The rigid hierarchy of the empire gave way to a more adaptive governance structure informed by human innovation. Ancient enemies became reluctant, then genuine partners in the face of cosmic inevitability. When the dimensional convergence finally began, right on schedule as the human physicists had predicted, it came not as catastrophe, but as evolution. 2 realities, 2 histories, 2 peoples who had once sought each other's destruction now orchestrated the greatest cooperative achievement in known history. On the day the convergence completed, Admiral Zenith, now elderly but still active in the joint fleet, stood on the observation deck of a new vessel, neither human nor Viridian, but something transcendent. Beside him stood Dr. Cavelli, one of the few remaining humans born before the purge. Did you ever imagine this outcome? Zenith asked, as they watched stars from both dimensions harmonize in patterns of breathtaking beauty. The old human shook his head. Never. When I watched Earth die, I thought only of survival, then vengeance. And when did that change? Dr. Cavelli considered the question. When we realized that dimensional physics offered not just escape but perspective. From outside conventional spacetime, we could see patterns invisible to those within it. We saw that empires rise and fall, that vengeance begets vengeance. But adaptation, true adaptation, leads to evolution. Zenith nodded slowly. My ancestors believed power came from strength of arms, from territory controlled. And mine believed it came from technological advancement, from conquering nature, Cavelli added. Together they watched as the merged galaxy stabilized, 2 civilizations now inexorably linked in a shared reality they had cooperatively engineered. They were both wrong, Zenith concluded. True power, it seems, lies in the ability to transcend your own limitations, even the limitations of your past. Dr. Cavelli smiled. Perhaps that is the one lesson worth preserving when all else changes. As the dimensional convergence completed without catastrophe, the galaxy entered a new era, one shaped not by conquest or retribution, but by the unprecedented partnership of two peoples who had learned that true power lay not in domination, but in the courage to evolve beyond it.